What's up, guys? It's Toad, back with Better Off Dead. Only talking 2 NFL games because we only have 4 teams left. The final 4, baby. We're talking the conference championship week in the NFL. I actually am playing both games because I do like sides in both of them, and I guess just because I can't help myself. And I'm gonna actually play a prop in each of them because why not? I'll tell you what my favorite prop is in both games. I might put a little bit of money on a couple of these props because I can't help myself. I play some in the Super Bowl too, but usually the props I play in the Super Bowl are like props that I play blindly in the Super Bowl just because you can get good value on them typically because of the type of game it is and because there's such an influx of public betting. It's a little bit less the case in the conference championship games, but I think I've keyed in on a couple of props that have decent reasoning behind them. So let's get into it, man. Where are we going with these games? I don't even know. I don't know where I'm going in general. All right. So we got the AFC Championship game is going to be up first. Oh, no, that's the NFC. What am I doing? Looking at the market here for the Chiefs-Ravens. Unfortunately, the Chiefs advanced, and I don't want to rant about it anymore, but I ranted about it in the daily video that I had after that game was over. Buffalo, obviously had multiple dropped passes that were crucial. There was that late pass interference flag on Buffalo after the refs realized it was an incomplete pass on 3rd and 9 for the Chiefs to help extend their drive. Buffalo missed field goal, shades of Norwood back in the day. Don't even want to talk about it, man. I'm so sick of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think at this point the entire country is rooting against the Chiefs. They're rooting against the Kelce's. We don't want to see Jason Kelce's fat stomach anymore. We don't want to see his hairy chest anymore. We don't want to see Taylor Swift anymore. It's just being crammed down our throats. It's all completely ridiculous. What do we have going on in the market in this game, though? Ravens opened, this says 2.5 with juice. I don't know about that. I think it pretty much opened 3 everywhere, and it started shooting up to the point where it's now at 4, shooting up like a heroin addict. I laid the points with the Ravens at -3.5. That's what I'm going to do in this game. I think you could still get the 3.5s. It keeps going up, man. So 65% of the cash on the Ravens, 54% of the tickets. So the tickets are closer to evenly split, but the cash discrepancy is definitely on the Ravens here. I know there are some professionals who like the Ravens here. The narrative is really just kind of the Chiefs are unstoppable. The Chiefs are the one guy, the Chief, El Jefe. The Chiefs are unstoppable in the playoffs is kind of the narrative, man. Mahomes, I think he's, undefeated in the playoffs. He finally got over the hump. Everybody was saying it's Mahomes on the road, man, for the first time ever. Even I thought that would be a new environment for him. I don't think I was necessarily completely wrong about that game in thinking that the Bills would win the game, because they probably should have. But Mahomes got that under his belt. Now he's got a road playoff game under his belt now. Now people are going to be pointing out he's like 3-1, I think, in his career against Lamar Jackson. I think he's undefeated in the playoffs. He has a road playoff game under his belt. Mahomes, he's back. Mahomes, nobody can do anything about the Chiefs, man. They just win in the playoffs. They continue to win. I just hope that's not the case anymore. There are reasons to play the Baltimore Ravens in this game other than the fact that I think the market is indicating on the Baltimore Ravens in this game, but I do believe that there are some good reasons to play the Ravens here. I think the Ravens are the better team, and the line is really lined. If you get 3.5, the line is really, it's giving them like home field and only a little bit more. But if you look at the power ratings, guys, a lot of the power ratings guys have Baltimore 1 or 2 points better. Really, they should be like somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 5 to 6 point favorite in this game based on some of the power ratings. The Chiefs, of course, are getting some of the they're having the numbers skewed towards them, I think, a little bit because they're the Kansas City Chiefs and because of their track record. And that is certainly the advantage they have in this game is the history and the experience. These guys obviously have experience. Mahomes, Andy Reid, they have experience winning at this level. Certainly they do. Multiple Super Bowl wins, of course. But at some point, man, some of these other teams that are really good have to get over the hump. And Baltimore is absolutely the better team here. Both of these teams have really good defenses. The Chiefs are like a top 5 defense this year, but Baltimore is the #1 defense in the NFL. They have a very aggressive defense, very good defense. They're also number one against the pass, specifically. And Kansas City Chiefs, of course, their offense is helmed by Patrick Mahomes. I still consider, even though they have a lot of pass droppers that have been being made fun of this year. I don't know if Tony is playing in this game or not, but the Chiefs certainly still are a pass offense, man. I mean, it's still an offense led by Mahomes, even though Pacheco has been a good physical runner for them this year. But the Baltimore Ravens, I think their defensive strength matches up right against the Kansas City offensive strength, if they have one, which is still the pass. But also, the Kansas City offense is the weakest unit on the field in this game, man. Baltimore has a much better offense than Kansas City does, and Baltimore's defense is slightly better than Kansas City's is. So I do think Baltimore being shortchanged of this number, man. Baltimore, I mean, they continue to win at home. How many home losses does Baltimore have this year? I don't know. They lost to the Colts at home, which is really their only legitimate loss on the season, really. They lost at Pittsburgh. They did lose at home to the Cleveland Browns in that ridiculous game. And then the home game against Pittsburgh, you can just throw that out as one of the Ravens' losses because, of course, that was the game where the Ravens benched everybody. The Ravens, they came out a little bit slow, of course, which I think both one seeds, the Ravens and the 49ers, both came out slow last week. Maybe because both teams rested their starters in the final week because they had the one seed locked up and they then had a bye, of course. So they came out a little bit cold, but Baltimore really turned it on. They adjusted. I mean, Baltimore didn't even really play that bad in the first half. Their defense was outstanding and just completely shut down Houston's offense, although Houston's offense is kind of one-dimensional, although C.J. Stroud is very good. Still an impressive performance from the Baltimore defense, man. I don't even know if Houston even got, past midfield more than, one time. The one time they got the field goal, because the touchdown that they scored was on a punt return. It was Houston was just punting on, every possession, man. I think they punted on all but one possession in the game, punt or turned it over, I guess, on all but one possession in the entire game. And I think that was the only possession they even got into Ravens territory. It was total shutdown defense by the Ravens, and the Ravens totally turned it on offensively with some halftime adjustments in the second half, too. They got back into that rhythm, and they got, I think, 3 straight touchdown drives. The Ravens are going to be a different animal, man, for the Kansas City Chiefs to face here. People are talking about, the Chiefs' offense has kind of turned it on now, man. They scored 26 and 27. Yeah, but it was against a Miami defense that I think had 9 of their original starters no longer playing in that game. So they had all, reserves. They were picking up guys off the street, man, on that Miami defense. And Buffalo had a very injured defense, too. Buffalo had, nobody left at linebacker. When it was announced that Bernard wasn't going to play, I was like, oh, this is not good, because he had gotten hurt in the previous game. Buffalo had a banged-up defense, too, and Miami's was very banged up. And Kansas City, it was very cold in that game, but their offense still wasn't very impressive against a Miami defense that just had nobody on that defense. And Kansas City's final touchdown on that in that game also was kind of questionable because that drive was helped out by a really questionable roughing the passer call to Mahomes getting all the calls from these refs, which, of course, people have been pointing out that I forget what his name is, Sean Smith, maybe something like that. One of the refs who has been announced for this game is notorious for helping the road teams out, which doesn't really look that great for the Ravens, but because people are talking about, I don't know, maybe it's being a little bit overstated, but the numbers in his officiated games are skewed towards the road team quite a bit more than the typical game, which I don't think is great, but still, I forgot to bring up the actual play. Yeah, Baltimore Ravens, -3.5. Let's do it, man. But Baltimore, their defense is a different animal than what Kansas City has seen so far, man. This is going to be the best defense they've faced all year. I don't think they've faced the Ravens this year. Baltimore Ravens, they've only lost one game that wasn't in their division, which was to the Indianapolis Colts, and that was a game I actually bet on the Indianapolis Colts to cover as I think an 8-point underdog or something like that at Baltimore, because Baltimore was in a bad spot. I don't remember what it was, but some bad spot. And Baltimore's other losses this year, they have 4 losses on the season. That was one of them, in a bad spot to the Colts. They got caught in that one. That was their worst loss on the season. They lost 2 divisional games to Pittsburgh and Cleveland. And in both of those games, Baltimore, I believe, had 2-score leads in the fourth quarter and blew them. So Baltimore easily could have and probably should have won both of those games. And then their other losses, of course, the game that doesn't matter, that you can just completely throw out. The game where Pittsburgh needed to win the game to even make the playoffs, and Baltimore just rested all their starters. So that game you can just totally ignore. But Baltimore really has only been beaten like kind of decisively one time by the Indianapolis Colts, and even that was just a 3-point loss. So Baltimore is extremely difficult to beat, and that Colts game was the only game that was not a divisional game that Baltimore lost this year. Baltimore, they're really tough, man. Like I said, they're a different animal defensively than Miami and Buffalo. Baltimore's defense is much more intact than theirs is. Baltimore has been the team over the last few years that has had like all the injuries to deal with, and this year that's not the case. This year, they pretty much have their full set of players going, so that's going to be tough. And Lamar Jackson is just a different animal too, man. Even though, yeah, I mean, Kansas City did face Josh Allen twice, and he's a very mobile rushing quarterback. So they are maybe used to it because they did face him, and they just faced him last week. So maybe you can say that maybe they'll be ready for Lamar Jackson being able to run the ball. Maybe that's true. But then again, this is also a second straight road game for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Kansas City Chiefs did win as an underdog in that first road game. And I think historically, when a team wins in the playoffs as a road underdog, and then they have another road game after that, that tends to not be that great for that team either. I think straight up, and I think against the spread, their numbers are not really that good. Although the spread, I think, is a little bit closer to 50-50, but straight up, they lose a lot of those games. And this is a kind of a small enough spread, man, that I mean, even though you're laying the hook with the 3.5, it's still close to just kind of asking Baltimore to win the game. All that being said, yeah, I think the line is short. And then I mentioned Baltimore's defensive strength matching up against Cleveland. Kansas City's offensive strength. But Baltimore, their offensive strength is the rushing attack. They have the number one rushing attack in the NFL with Lamar Jackson being able to run, but also a set of running backs with a lot of like change of pace going on. Their running back core is very, very good with Gus Edwards being that bruising, like punishing runner there, even though he does also kind of have some speed there. And then they got Justice Hill, who's their fast back, their speed back. That change of pace is just insane on that team. And they signed Dalvin Cook. I don't even know how they got Dalvin Cook. He was on the Jets. The Jets must have released him or something. Baltimore was just like, yeah, I guess fuck it. We'll just pick up Dalvin Cook. So he's on the team too. And he was getting involved last week a little bit too. And Dalvin Cook, you remember, he was one of the top running backs in the NFL a few years ago. I don't think he's going to do anything crazy like for Baltimore in the playoffs here. But, I mean, he was getting involved and doing some stuff in the last game. So it's just crazy. Baltimore, they're the number one team in the NFL, man. So I like Baltimore here. I think the situation is fine for it. I think the matchup works out nicely for Baltimore, and I think the narrative is too like pro Mahomes at this point. Now that people have seen Kansas City beat Buffalo yet again in the playoffs, and it's like Kansas City is now unstoppable in the playoffs. They got Mahomes, he can't be beat, even though I think the public sentiment wants Baltimore to win because they're sick of the Chiefs. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't know if the NFL is going to have any rigging going on. I mentioned that ref, Sean Smith or whatever they put on this game, but not Sean Spencer from Psych. But I don't even know. Although and this is my partner, running back, Gus Edwards. No, I have no idea, but I like Baltimore in this one. And moving to the prop that I like in this game the best. Let's go to some props, man. I'm not really a prop guy, but I've thought through these props and I like them. Lamar Jackson, pass completions over 19.5, which I got at minus 108. I think you can probably get it somewhere in that price range, somewhere around the minus 110. I think this line's a little bit low, man. Lamar Jackson, he completed more than 19.5 passes in about half of the games this year. I think he did it 8 times this year, which isn't that great. And I mean, thinking about it, well, it's 8. What do they play? They play 17 games now, so 8 and 9. So that's not great. But you think about it, a lot of these games this year, man, Baltimore was blowing teams out. So, and they have the number one rushing attack, which also one of the factors in them having the best rushing attack was that they kept running the ball even more because they had big leads in a lot of games. So what do you do when you have a big lead? Of course, you run the ball a lot more. So that kept some of Lamar Jackson's passing stats down in some of these games. So I don't think that's going to be the case in this one because even though I like the Ravens to win and cover, it's not a huge number, and I don't think that the Ravens are going to run away with this game such that they're going to just completely go away from the pass. I think they're going to have to throw the ball in this game to a decent extent. I think it's still going to be a competitive game. I mean, it is the Kansas City Chiefs. It's 2 good defenses coming out here. So I think that lends itself to Lamar Jackson throwing more passes, and I like this, and again, like I said, I think this is going to be low. I think he might throw some more high percentage passes in this game too, knowing what the Chiefs defense likes to do. He might be possibly throwing some shorter passes in this game as well, which would lend itself to more completions as well. So I like this, and yeah, I don't know if there's much else to it other than that. Just this kind of a game flow play. And the other thing that I like about this, because I do think they're going to have to pass more because it'll be a more competitive game. If you look at the games where Lamar Jackson did go over this completions total, he was like in the low to mid 20s in a lot of them. And it was mostly like the more competitive games that they played this year were the games that he was going over that completion total. So I like that aspect of it. I was considering instead of playing completions, playing his pass attempts over, because I do think that might be a decent play too, but the completions number is just so low compared to the his attempts. The line is sitting at like 28 and a half. 19 out of 28 is a pretty low completion percentage, man. He might have a higher completion percentage than that, I would say. So I think the better value is on the pass completions number than on the pass attempts, although I do kind of like both of those for the over. But the other thing is nobody's talking about Lamar Jackson's throwing ability. Everybody's talking about his rushing ability. People love Lamar Jackson over the rushing props, rushing attempts, rushing yards, whatever. I mean, they played it last week probably, and last week it went way over. So people are liking that Lamar Jackson rushing stuff, but they're really, I think the value then comes into play on his passing props rather than his rushing props. I think the passing props are just being completely overlooked. And like I said, in this game, I do think they're going to have to throw the ball more because it'll be a more competitive game, and they'll still need to be trying to put up points on the board. So I do like that. For all those reasons. And another good thing about this prop, if you're playing this prop and you're laying the points with Baltimore, they're not really correlated, so it's not like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, but they could both win simultaneously. It's not like one is going to negate the other, but also one is a little bit almost in opposition to the other, because you're saying that if he's going to complete more passes, that might mean it's going to be a more competitive game. So maybe one of those will happen and not the other too. So then you're at least kind of diversifying a little bit at least. So I like it. I think the way that this game is going to play out, like I said, it just comes down to, I think it's going to be a bit more competitive. He's going to have to throw the ball a bit more. And I think those will be more high percentage passes as well to some extent. And maybe throwing some passes to Justice Hill and stuff there as well. Zay Flowers, throwing some more shorter passes and letting his receivers run with it after the catch as well, as Baltimore does have that in their arsenal offensively. So I like that. I like that prop. Lamar Jackson completions over 19.5 for a prop in this one. That's going to be the one prop. Not really a prop guy, like I said, but that's one that I do like. And then going back, I'll just comment on the total. You have 80% of the tickets on the over and 86% of the cash on the over. And it looks like it's gone down from 50 to 44.5. I don't think it was ever 50. 50 is just an insane total. But my first reaction to this was people are going to think, well, it's Mahomes versus Jackson. We're going to get points in this game, that the public will like the over. And yeah, they do. But at 44.5, man, I think people still kind of think, but this is also kind of like a game with two good defenses. I don't know, man. It looks like the cash discrepancy is on the over. I would not want to get involved in the total, really, in either of these games. But I actually, because of the cash discrepancy, I actually have a slight lean towards the over in this one. Excuse me, very slightly, which would kind of help lend itself to a favorite covering as well if there are going to be more points in this game. But I don't know. I think just the way people saw maybe the Ravens just coming out a little bit slow to start last week, but I don't know, because people do like both these offenses. Obviously the public is still playing the over to more of an extent, but it does look like some of the money is also on the over, thinking that the number's a little bit low in this one for the total. So we'll see, and maybe that has to do with what I was saying. If it's a more competitive game, the Ravens might have to be throwing more than sometimes they do, which might mean more points coming on the board here. So I don't know about that one, but the total, that's pretty weak. That's certainly not going to be a play for me. Lions 49ers in the other game. This line came out 7. It looks like it's up to 7 with juice in some spots. You got 55% of the tickets on the Lions and 56% of the cash on the Lions. I kind of expect that to shift a little bit to the point where you might see a little bit less of the cash percentage on the Lions. I think the Lions are a trendy public dog, man, as much as it pains me to say it, because I think there are matchup reasons why I think the Lions might be being undersold in this game a little bit. I am still laying the 7 with the 49ers, even though we don't know Deebo Samuel's status yet, really. But if Deebo Samuel is going to be ruled in, this line could only move up a little bit, right? So I think if you get on the 49ers now, you're getting the value. I think it was 6.5 at one point in some spots, too. I would still lay it at 7. I wouldn't want to lay more than 7 in this one. But if Deebo Samuel comes back, I think you'll be looking at 7.5 probably. Maybe, I don't know if it'll get up to 8 or anything like that, or if the books are going to start trying to kill any potential teasers on this, but there might be a little bit less of a tendency for people to tease when there are way fewer games left to tease, and maybe they would be teasing it with other sports and stuff. I don't know. I like the 49ers, and the reason for it, though, is that what we saw out of the 49ers last week. Even I was saying, the 49ers, they just don't look right in this game. They almost lost to the Packers, but if you're a guy that bets, and you've been betting for a long time, you know that when a team is a big favorite, a double-digit favorite like the Niners were, and they put up such an awful performance and they barely escape and almost lose the game, but they're able to get it done at the end, that tends to be a good situation for them in the next game, carrying that into the next game. They have the momentum of actually winning that game, and it put a scare into them where they're like, oh, shit, we have to adjust. We have to play better here. You have to adjust. You have to fix the things that went wrong. You live to see another day. You know that you didn't play well. You know you have a ton of things to fix. So I like all of that about it. So that's the main reason to be on the 49ers here. So that's why I like it. I think people are just downgrading them too much because of the performance against the Packers. And, of course, we did see the Packers beat Dallas as well. I mean, the Packers played well in the playoffs, and Jordan Love did play well. But I will say that what we saw out of the 49ers does kind of scare me a little bit to some extent, although just from a betting perspective, I just know how this works, man. And it's just when you have a scare, you just want to be on that team in the next game. So that's why I'm on the 49ers. But I think the Ravens might be the stronger of the two sides here, but I do like them both. But because this game, I do think that it seems like there's more of a public sentiment on the Lions as a trendy underdog, though, because unlike with the Chiefs, the public actually wants the Lions to win because they're the underdog, man. They're the team that never wins anything, so the public likes that aspect of it. So I think people might be betting with their hearts a little bit, so that might be why some people are betting the Ravens, but it also might be why people are betting the Lions. So as far as, the Lions are concerned, and actually I'll point out in both of these games, because we're getting into NFC, AFC championship games now, you could have that, aspect of it where it becomes almost like the Super Bowl again. It's a big game where you have a lot of the public comes in and they like to play the underdog on the money line because it looks tempting. Oh, I play the Chiefs, I can lay 100 to win 170, or I play the Lions, I can lay 100 to win 220 or whatever, 210, whatever. I don't know what the money line is on it, something like that. But because there's such that public influx, and it only really happens in games where there's this much public action, and they're coming in on the underdog on the money line just because it's enticing, because they're paying less to win more on the underdog, that it actually gives you a little bit more value playing the favorite on the money line. So there is that aspect of it. I don't know if there's that much value in playing the Ravens at minus 200 on the money line, though. If it was minus 180 or even maybe upwards to 190, I think maybe there is a little bit of value on the money line there, but I think the 3.5 is the better way to play the Ravens. But I don't mind a money line playing the Ravens or the 49ers, really. But the 49ers, you're going to have to lay more, probably minus 300, something in that range. So I think the spread is probably the way to go, especially with the Niners. If it's 7 or if somehow you got lower than 7, if you got in early, then yeah, I like that as the way to play it on the 49ers. But as I was getting into there are things that scare me about what the 49ers did last week, because their defense, which is supposed to be one of the better defenses in football, their defense was really, really awful in that game, dude. Green Bay didn't punt at all until the second half, and I think they only punted once in the whole game. They did turn the ball over twice, but Green Bay was moving the ball without any problem. Even though Green Bay, I mean, Jordan Love, he's emerged and come onto the scene. He's still a rookie, and they have a ton of youth on that team, man. Like, all their wide receivers are, like, new to the game, like rookies, and they were still doing that to the 49ers defense. And they do have a good rushing attack for Green Bay. They did have Aaron Jones, and he had really turned it on. He's more of a veteran than any of the other guys. But even so, for that offense to move it that easily against the 49ers, that does scare me. And as I pointed out in my daily video after that, Green Bay could have won the game if they had been able to put more points on the board on those drives. They had 3 drives that I think went definitely at least into the red zone, where they only came away with 6 points. They got held to 2 field goals, and then they had that 4th down play where they went for it on 4th and 1, and they got it, and the refs screwed them with the spot on the ball and didn't give them the first down. And if you watch the replay, Jordan Love definitely picked up that first down, man. I'm sorry. Some 49ers fans might not like me saying that, might think I just think that there's bias involved. I think I have a little bit less bias. I had money on the 49ers in that game. So, I mean, what do you want me to say? So, if anything, my bias would have been against it. But I do think Jordan Love picked up that first down, and they got screwed on that one, too. So, Green Bay could have had even more points on the board, and they could have won that game. The other thing that scares me about it is when Deebo Samuel went down, it was like the same old thing again, man. He missed 3 games during the regular season, and the 49ers lost all 3 of those games. Then they almost lost this Packers game without Deebo Samuel. And it's like with Deebo Samuel out, it's almost like Brock Purdy just turns into a different person. It's like, even though he has all these other great weapons on the offense, he has Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the game, Brandon Ayuk, one of the best wide receivers, and he's still got George Kittle, who maybe is still the best tight end in the league, one of the best. He's got all those crazy weapons on the offense, but it's like as soon as Deebo is out, it's like their offense just crumbles and falls apart. Brock Purdy, man, he was like the front runner for the MVP until recently. I just don't get it, man. I don't see it. I think he's good. Like, he's fine. He's better than, of course, where he was drafted. He was Mr. Irrelevant, which I think he's never going to live down. But that might have him playing with a little chip on his shoulder, because he was literally the last pick taken in his draft class that year. He was Mr. Irrelevant out of Iowa State there. But I mean, I don't think he's a great quarterback. If he can't, like, put the team on his shoulders just because Deebo Samuel's out, just because one guy's out, like, what if the team winds up trading him or something like that? Are they just gonna completely suck ass? Are they gonna go from, like, the best team in football or one of the best teams to, like, a mediocre team just because Samuel's gone? That would be crazy with all these other weapons that they have on the team. I don't know. That's just crazy to me. But he put it together at the end, and he marched them down the field and was able to get them a game-winning touchdown drive at the end. So he did do that. So, but I think in this game, I think he'll do okay. The Lions' defense is not really that menacing, and their pass defense is really their weakness. The Lions have actually a surprisingly good defense against the run. They actually have one of the best defenses in the league against the run, but the pass defense has really not been good. So the defense against the run is good. So that might force the 49ers into throwing the ball more, although I think that kind of helps a team trying to cover the spread as a favorite to some degree as well. But I do think the 49ers are going to be able to score against the Lions defense, which is their weakest spot. I mean, everybody knows the Lions offense is quite good, and they have a ton of weapons on their offense as well. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, who's one of the best wide receivers in the game, and their running back tandem is pretty good with Montgomery as the power rusher and Jahmyr Gibbs, who is the young, fast pass-catching running back. I'll get to him when we get to my props, baby, or my only prop that I have in this game. But they do have youth on that team as well to some extent with the Lions. The 49ers have more experience as far as, like, the coaching and the guys that are on the team. They've been to this level of the game more than the Lions have. Like, the Lions, they have young guys, and most of these guys have not been to this level of the game before, and certainly their coach, Campbell, is not. He's done a great job in a pretty short amount of time getting to this point. That's crazy. Good for him. Good for the Lions, man. You love to see it, even though I was never really a Goff fan. I've kind of turned into a fan of the Lions as of late, just because their fan base is just, like, so demoralized from so many years of being horrible. And I did love Barry Sanders back in the day. Very class act there. Barry Sanders, great running back, one of the all-time greats. I would not mind seeing the Lions actually do it and like advance here. I would not mind that. Really, the only team that I would actually really want to see lose is the Chiefs. Like, I'm fine with the rest of them, really. But the Lions, it is a great story, but I do think it's going to end here. But again, there are some things, like I just pointed out with what we saw to the 49ers last week, scares me. But then again, people are going to overreact to that a little bit and probably like undervalue the 49ers a little bit because of that. Like, that's one game. Every game is different. Every situation is different. Don't overreact to that one game. So I'm trying not to overreact, even though, I mean, I'm not overreacting. I'm playing the 49ers. But I can think of all these reasons in my head to like not do it, which is crazy. And then matchup-wise, I don't know, man, because it is true that the Lions do have the good rushing defense, which is strength on the best strength of the 49ers, which is the 49ers' ability to run the ball. Their rushing attack is better than their passing attack. So that is strength on strength there for the 49ers, or excuse me, for the Lions defense going up against the 49ers offense. So the 49ers have enough different things that they can do offensively that I think that they'll still be able to do things against this Lions defense that does certainly have its weaknesses. The Lions, I was going to point out, they do have Sam Laporta back, but he is playing still with like a brace on his knee or whatever from that injury where Campbell stupidly played him in the last regular season game that didn't matter. They were essentially locked into the 3 seed, so stupid that he got him hurt, but he has been playing in the playoffs, and he's looked okay. The Lions did also pick up Zach Ertz just randomly. Oh, Zach Ertz is a free agent. He used to be like a number 1 tight end for his teams. Let's bring him in, so that will, I guess, be another thing the 49ers defense will have to contend with a little bit. Zach Ertz is going to be, I guess, playing for the Lions in this game and maybe get into the mix there. So that's kind of crazy. But then as far as the Lions offense, like, I think the one like advantage they might have in this game is that their quarterback has more experience than the 49ers quarterback. Purdy has whatever, like, what does he have, 3-4 playoff games now, whatever it is. I mean, maybe 3 because he was injured in, of course, the game last year that just where they completely fell apart. And I made a mistake. I actually thought that game was at San Francisco. It was actually at Philadelphia. Philadelphia was actually the 1 seed, and I think the 49ers might have been the 2 or maybe even the 3 last year. I forget what it was, but that was actually on the road. I think that horrible game the 49ers never want to think about again, which I think is going to motivate them here. So that's another reason to play the 49ers is that they're motivated, man, because they remember what happened. They were in this game last year, the NFC Championship last year, and they know what happened. The game was a disaster. Brock Purdy got injured, and the game just completely fell apart. They had nothing. They basically, I don't even know who their backup was, but whoever it was just couldn't do anything, and he got hurt too. And then they brought in Purdy again because they had no other quarterbacks, I think, even on their roster, so all they could do was have Purdy with no arm just handing it off. That game is one to forget. I think nobody can really pay attention to what happened in that game. It was one of the reasons I went against the Eagles in the Super Bowl last year is because the Eagles won that game in a blowout, but it's like, but look at what happened in that game. Like the 49ers, even though they're a good team, they just totally packed it in because their quarterback injury situation was just like, the game was just doomed, like almost from the start. So, but that's going to motivate the 49ers here because that was this level of the game last year. That was the NFC Championship last year, and they're going to remember it even though they want to forget it. So they're going to want to put in a much better performance here. A lot of those guys are back on the team this year, so they remember that. They're going to want to put in a much better performance than that. So the motivational factor there, I think, puts this in territory where you should play the 49ers here. So that is what I'm doing. But then, like I was going to say, Goff does have more experience than Purdy, though. He's been to a Super Bowl before, and I believe he has 9 playoff games. And I do think people are giving him too much crap because people are saying, well, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff can't play outdoors. Like, look at his stats outdoors this year, man. His stats outdoors have been horrible. Like, he's been horrible this year outdoors, right? He has whatever. Like, I think he has 6 touchdowns in 7 games or something and 4 interceptions. Yeah, but, like, where is he playing those games? This game at least is going to be in California, and Jared Goff, he played at California. This is in Northern California. This is close to where he played in college, man. So he's going to be back, like, kind of in familiar territory for him, and he played for the LA Rams, so that was in California, although I guess that was in a roof state, or they might have been playing in the Coliseum for a while when he was there, so that might have been outdoors as well, but it's California, man. I mean, he's used to playing in California, and the weather's going to be nice in this game. I think it's going to be 70 degrees and sunny in this game, yeah. 69, sunny, 69, nice. Yeah, 70 degrees. I mean, come on, man. Like, the weather, playing outdoors, I don't think is going to be much of a factor here. It's going to help both quarterbacks, if anything, really. The weather's going to be real nice. So I think that's going to be good for the offenses in this one. But Jared Goff, man, like I said, he's used to playing in California. At least he played on the LA Rams, and they not only, of course, played in LA, but they played at San Francisco every year. And so Jared Goff has experience playing in this stadium. I believe he has 4 games in the stadium, and he's 2-2. But his offenses have put up an average of almost 30 points a game in those games. But they were all with the Rams. Yes, that's true. Where he had those really good receivers there with Cooper Kupp and whoever else they had there. They had Cooks, I think, in some of that. They had like various different receivers in those games. But yeah, so he did have talented offensive weapons, but of course he has talented offensive weapons on Detroit too. Like, Detroit has really good receivers on their team too. So, like, what are you talking about? He still has a good offense. Like, he had a good offense on the Rams. He has a good offense on Detroit. So I think that's kind of a wash. But yeah, in his games in the 49ers stadium, he's 2-2 straight up, but his offenses have put up like around 30 points a game in those 4 games. Although he's 0-2 in the last 2. That is also true. He lost the most 2 recent ones, which does have people saying, well, the 49ers dominate Jared Goff now because he hasn't beaten them in who knows how long, whatever. But he did beat them earlier in his career with the Rams a couple times where it kind of shifted. It was like the Rams have the 49ers number, and then it shifted to the 49ers have the Rams number, and it's like whatever. And in those games, I believe his stats are pretty good. I believe in his career in the stadium, he has 9 touchdowns in the 4 games and 2 interceptions. So people are making fun of him on the road, but this isn't like your typical road game, man, even though this is a playoff road game where the atmosphere will be crazy. But Goff might have some fans there because he's back in California, so he'll be playing with maybe some home presence in the crowd there, but also, like I said, the weather is going to be real nice in this game, so I think that's fine. Like, that's not going to be negative. That's not going to be a negative for him. I mean, come on. He's used to it. His stats in the stadium are actually pretty good, playing as an opponent in all of them. So I don't think that's much of a factor. But for all the reasons I stated before, because the 49ers think are going to be scared back into focus, I kind of expect Deebo Samuel will be back in this game and will actually play. And because I think are just being shortchanged because they looked so bad last week, I like the 49ers to do it, man. I don't know if the Lions will really get credit for beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but people are just shitting on the 49ers, saying like how bad they looked last week and how they're just not right. And I have been falling into that trap because a lot of it is actually true, but when it comes to betting, it's just a different situation, man. And I think that might help refocus them in this game and do enough where, and there'll be enough points scored in this game where they'll be able to get it done and actually win this game by more than the touchdown. So I do think that is going to be what will happen here. I think the better team will actually win out in this one. And that people are overreacting to their poor game that they played last week. And then as far as, I don't know if I have anything else to comment on as far as what the Chiefs and the Ravens looked like last week, other than the fact that I think the Chiefs will get way more credit for beating the Bills because everybody knows that's a really tough game. People are like, well, Chiefs-Bills, that's like, a lot of times that would be a matchup where people would say that determines the winner of the AFC, like it was like a couple of years ago where the winner of that game just had to go out and face, the Bengals. What are the Bengals going to do? And then the Bengals upset them. And I was on the Bengals in that one just because that Chiefs-Bills game with all those touchdowns at the end of the game took so much out of those teams that I thought the Chiefs were going to run out of steam against the Bengals, and that is what happened. They got out to the lead, and they blew the game against the Bengals there. But I think the Chiefs will get more credit for beating the Bills than the Ravens will get credit. People have seen the Chiefs win 2 straight games now and look pretty good in doing so, and beat the Bills, who people know are good. They know the Ravens are good, but they're not going to give the Ravens that much credit for, I think, beating, even though they like Stroud, I don't think they're going to give the Ravens as much credit for beating a rookie quarterback and a Texans team that isn't as good as the Bills and the Chiefs. So that's what I think there. So those the 2 plays on those 2 games are the Ravens -3.5, 49ers -7, and then I have the prop in the first game, Lamar Jackson pass completions over 19.5. And the other prop that I have, I forgot to put up the 49ers. Man, I'm really out of it tonight, really slacking. I forgot to put up the 49ers plus 49ers -7 banner there. And then going to the prop before I get out of here. Let's not make this video be so long. 40 minutes for 2 games. But these games, they're the NFC and AFC title games, man. They deserve some focus at least. What's the prop that I'm on? I already hinted at it. We're going with Jahmyr Gibbs receptions over 3.5. I like this one. So obviously Jahmyr Gibbs is the pass catcher on the Detroit Lions. Out of their running backs, Montgomery's their like rusher, and then Gibbs is going to be the guy in there receiving the passes. I think the game flow is going to dictate a lot of this. I think the 49ers are going to have the lead in the game, which means the Lions are going to have to be throwing the ball more, which means they're going to have to be running offensive schemes and packages where Gibbs is the running back that's out on the field. They're going to be trying to spread the ball around more, throwing the ball more, so I like that aspect of it. I think they're going to have to throw more passes. They'll have their pass-catching running back on the field more, so I like, and because of the 49ers' pass rush, which is pretty good, you might even see Goff having to, like, check down to the running back more than he might otherwise as well. So all of that leads me to jumping on this one with Gibbs getting over the 3.5 receptions. I was able to get it in an underdog price at plus 106, so I don't know if you can find it at 3 anywhere. It seems like it's pretty much at 3.5 everywhere. Maybe I didn't get on it soon enough. Maybe it was lower than this before, but I still think 3.5 at an underdog price is a decent way to go here in this one with this prop. And if you look at Gibbs' performance this year, he's gone over this actually in both playoff games so far, but he's had 4 receptions in each game, so he's barely gone over it. But even so, he has gone over it with the 8 receptions in the 2 games, 4 in each. And if you look at the regular season, I believe he did it 9 times out of the 17 games he went over. And in some of those games, he had a lot. It depends on the game flow. He had a lot of receptions in some of those games. And I don't know if it was games where they were like behind more in the game. Like it seems like maybe some of the more competitive games, maybe he didn't get involved as much. But I think, well, they're the Lions. They weren't really behind in that many games. But I don't know. Maybe I would have to actually look to see if it was like the Ravens game, but I still just like it anyway because he did it in more than half the games this year. In some of the games he had like 6. There was one game where he had 9, but there were a couple games where he had 1 or even 0, I think, receptions. So I don't know if any of those games he didn't play in, but I don't really know. Or maybe the game flow just did not dictate it, but I think it does dictate it here, so that helps. Or I think the Lions are going to have to be throwing the ball more because they're going to be behind in this game. But the other thing that makes me really like this is if you look at what defenses have done against opposing running backs and allowing opposing running back receptions, the 49ers have allowed the 4th most in the NFL this year. The only teams that have allowed more they've allowed the 5th most, and they've allowed the 4th most average receptions to running backs per game this year. So total running back receptions this year, the 49ers have allowed the 5th most, and the only teams that have allowed more than they have are the Chargers, who had like maybe the worst defense in the NFL, the Washington Commanders, who I think are just right above them, and of course they suck badly, Chicago Bears, another terrible defense, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, yeah, I mean, I don't think they're as good as we thought that they were. Really, I don't know if their defense is really any good. So just those teams. Those are the only teams, the Chargers, Bears, Commanders football team, and Jaguars were the only teams that allowed more receptions to running backs than the 49ers did this year. And I believe one of those teams gets tossed out. I think the Commanders might get tossed out as far as what teams allowed as far as average receptions for running backs on the season. Per game, running back receptions, the 49ers allowed the 4th most behind the Chargers, the Bears, and the Jaguars, I believe. And the 49ers allowed like 5 point something, I think like 5.4 or something like that, running back receptions per game. So I think that makes it look good as well. The 49ers, even though they have a pretty good defense, their defense has a tendency to allow running back receptions, and it might be for the reasons I just stated, where it might be because teams have to throw the ball more. Like, that's not necessarily a knock on the 49ers defense for that stat, even though they're amongst some really bad defenses in that stat. But for the 49ers, it could be because they're ahead a lot in games, although I didn't see the Ravens on that list, so I don't know. But it could be because the 49ers are ahead in games so much, and because their pass rush is good, but so is the Ravens. So I don't know. Their pass rush is so good, and teams are falling behind to them so often that they're just throwing throwing to their running backs, and they're having to check down to running backs and whatever. So I like this prop. Gibbs. I don't like playing overs, but for props, you can find some pretty good props to play over, I think, depending on how the game flow is going to go. So I like that. Jahmyr Gibbs over 3.5 receptions for all those reasons. And as far as the total is concerned, before I put this video to a close here, you see that the over has 69% of the tickets in this one and 65% of the cash, and it's gone up from 50.5 to 51.5. So you do see that the numbers moved up, which would lead you to believe that maybe there's some money pushing this number up. And we know that the Niners did not they were not able to push the total over last week in their game against the Packers. That game actually went under by 1 score, I think, in the last game. But I think the perception is probably still just that these two teams, even though people are maybe going to be a little bit questioning about Deebo Samuel and his injury, people know that these are both offenses that can score, man, and the Lions' defense isn't that great, but the Lions' offense is really good. So people know these are two pretty good offenses, so people are going to expect points in this game still. And as you can see, not as much of the public on the over in this one as you see in the Chiefs-Ravens game, which is crazy. But it also has to do with how high this number is, but still 69% of the tickets are on the over and only 65% of the cash. So I would just lean to where the cash discrepancy is on this total. If I was going to play it at all, which I'm not going to. I don't like either totals. I don't want to get involved in either of these totals, but I would lean to the under slightly in this one, even though the 49ers still did go to the under in the last one, too. I think these teams are not that familiar with each other, so I think they might be feeling each other out a little bit early, maybe not wanting to make mistakes early, especially with the 49ers. I don't know, man. The 49ers defense, I couldn't stop anybody last week, which people saw that. Even though the Packers didn't convert it into points, people might have seen that, the Packers were moving the ball easily, although I don't know if people, think about it that much in depth or pay attention and look at it that much in depth. I don't know, but I think people are just going to think, these are just high-scoring offense. So I think the total is just a little too high, but I would be scared to play the under, even though I leaned to the under a little bit here. I'd be scared to be on that under because pretty much anything could happen to just send this game going over, so I don't want it. And I lean slightly to the over in the other one just because I think that number is just a little low. And the perception might be that those teams are better defenses than offenses, which the defenses are definitely good. And the Chiefs' defense is better than their offense. But even so, that's going to do it for me, man. So hopefully we get there with these plays, man. So the plays one more time are the Baltimore Ravens -3.5. Lamar Jackson getting into the props, pass completions over 19.5. I got that at -108. I think you could still get it at a pretty decent price there. San Francisco 49ers -7, which I would get on before they announced that Deebo Samuel is playing, which I think is going to happen because it'll move up if he does. And Jahmyr Gibbs receptions over 3.5, which I got at +106. But if you can get maybe even a better number on that, potentially, that's the way I would do it. It's going to do it for me, man. Let's have a good weekend. I'm going to be away for the weekend, so we'll see what I do with my other videos because there's going to be a stacked college basketball card on Saturday. So we'll have to see. And some of those teams that are playing on Saturday are playing right now, I think, tonight. So we'll have to see what I can do about that. I'm going to have to just maybe find some spots and just make a quick video and be like, these are the teams that are in the situations I'm looking for, even though I don't know what the numbers are going to be yet. I don't know. It'll be tough to do not doing it the day of, I guess. We'll see. But these are my plays for the NFL weekend. That's going to do it for me, man. I am Tower Gang Toad, as always, on Twitter. Follow me for my political shit posting, my sports shit posting, the fact that I'm running for president, which is just ridiculous for the Libertarian Party, which I'm not going to win the nomination, but hopefully it just gets more people to pay attention a little bit, and we have some fun while we do it, at least. And I am, of course, on the Tower Gang podcast, which is the most offensive podcast on the planet, offensive comedy. So if that's your jam, go check us out on pretty much all the major platforms. You can still find us, at least still live streaming to YouTube at the very least. Find us there and go follow the guys at flapper.net, FLAPPR.net, and subscribe to them on YouTube. They're having a YouTube subscription campaign right now. They're trying to get over 4,000 followers or something like that, or 4,500 followers. They are the purveyors of the world's finest smut blog, and I think if they hit a certain number of subscribers, I don't know, their fans are gonna like show their titties or something like that. I don't know what's going on, but none of us can complain about that, of course. But I love those guys over there. They do political shit posting and sports shit posting like I do as well. They just put out, they're doing like a history video series. It's like real history, but also in a funny way on their YouTube channel. So check them out, man. Flapper, FLAPPR.net. Check out the Tower Gang podcast. Once again, the most hilarious, offensive podcast on the planet, which is the podcast that I am on. I'm out of here, man. Have a good weekend, good start to the weekend. I'm Toad, Tower Gang Toad. Let's get some money. Let's make some more money. I've been doing all right the last like week or so. Let's keep it going. Peace.